If you were to ask people how tides work, nobody will ever say that they don't know. Because I have been asking people, and they all say with unwavering confidence, the moon! The moon! That's like if somebody asks you how days work, and you say, the sun. If I press them to elaborate on their moon theory, every single person I asked said that a high tide occurs when water gets sucked towards the moon. And low tide? Yeah, that's on the opposite side of the Earth from the moon. So now, in this tide scenario, I know something they don't know. I'm sitting there all smug, like frickin' Galileo. Well, saying I know. Know is a strong word. I'd seen a diagram. But everyone was so confident when they answered. Maybe the diagram I'd seen was wrong. I can see how it must have been hard for Galileo Galilei back in the old days. I'd be sitting there in a chic pub in Florence, all cool and academic with stockings and perhaps a ruffled sort of collar. And then in walks old Galileo, rapidly scanning the room to see if anyone casts a glance at him. No, he saw me looking at him. Don't look, don't look. Galilemo's here. Hey, Nicholas. Oh, Gally. I was just about to leave. But your Aperol Spritz, it's still full. Anyway, I have something for you. Ask me if the sun orbits the Earth. Honestly, Gally, I gotta go. Come on, just ask quickly. I know the sun goes around the Earth, Gally. Everybody knows. Honestly, I gotta go. I left the keys in my Vespa and... If then Galileo started telling me that actually the sun didn't go around the Earth, in fact the Earth orbited the sun, even if he showed me little drawings and calculations, I know I'd be annoyed. I don't like being told that I'm wrong. And Galileo was annoying. Honestly, I looked it up. I googled, was Galileo annoying? And it said yes. That's probably part of the reason why they put him under house arrest for over 8 years. So that everybody could live their lives without old know-it-all Gally popping up and bleating on about how much smarter he was. They probably had like a town meeting or a referendum, and everyone in Florence was like, yeah, if you're sure. If you're sure execution isn't an option? No? Okay, well then house arrest will be fine, sure. If he'd come with a more practical idea, like investment advice or which cars had the least mechanical problems, that's one thing. But telling me about what planet goes around what, I just don't see why I should care. So what did humanity even learn from Galileo? Don't be annoying? Basically, if you have something others don't, like a revolutionary idea, be careful, or else people are gonna hate you. So I had to be very careful in how I presented this little diagram of the tides that I had seen. So first off, I thought it was best to compliment them on their water getting sucked towards the moon answer from before. Something like, wow, you're super smart. And then, I've got this extra Aperol Spritz if you want it. And then as soon as they accept, hop in with, oh, I wish I could figure this diagram out, but I'm just not smart enough. And then the resulting eagerness to solve the diagram was incredible. I'm good at motivating people. I need to utilize this skill. I could be like, motivational speaker, I guess. Or a debt collector. Anyway, this diagram showed a picture of the moon next to the Earth and a fat blue layer of water around the Earth. So just like everybody else, I'd expected the water to be getting sucked towards the moon, right? So sort of like a circle with a hump on one side. But it wasn't. Not unlike Alice the camel, the water had 2 humps. It was more like an egg, actually, with the water on the opposite side of the Earth from the moon, also having a high tide. But this had genuinely confused me. This can't be right. Why would the water on the other side of the Earth also bulge out away from the Earth? This is why I was asking people how it worked. I assumed that some sort of scientist or something drew the diagram, or commissioned the diagram from an artist that is really good at drawing circles and ovals. Or maybe there was no scientist involved at all, and it was just the artist, which would have solved all my current problems, because then I would know that it was probably wrong. Because the people I am asking about tides have an unwavering confidence that they are right. So either everyone is wrong, or the diagram is wrong. Regardless, my compliment strategy seemed like it worked quite well, because nobody was annoyed at me. But nor did anybody I asked express awe or amazement either. They would very quickly adapt and reposition. Confronted with this information, one person, beaming with self-righteousness, recalled without a beat, "Yeah, it's because the sun is on the other side, pulling the water that way." They were so confident. And I don't think it was just the Aperol Spritz. They explained that the sun is always on the opposite side of the moon, because we see the sun during the day and the moon during the night. I.e., we're on a big spinning platform, and we see the sun on one side, and when we spin around to the other side, we see the moon. Now, I like this answer. I didn't know if it was true. I mean, I must admit I've never seen the sun during the night. But I do see the moon during the day sometimes. Although I've heard people saying the sky is only blue because it reflects the sea. So it could just be reflecting the moon too, I guess. And it does tie in with the other theories I'm hearing. Like my friend's brother-in-law said that the phases of the moon, that's like when it's a full moon or like a little like thin cheese thing, that they're caused by the Earth's shadow being cast onto the moon, which is obvious because it's a round shadow. That means, he said, arranging 3 glasses in a row, the sun would in fact almost always be directly opposite the moon every night. Now this all fitted remarkably well as an explanation of the egg diagram. But so did other answers, and everyone was confident in their own answer. I later found out that all of them were completely wrong. But in hindsight, I'm really impressed by the creativity. Like they all sounded like they could be right. Whether they'd heard these explanations from somebody else, or whether they felt they had to protect their initial stance, that they knew how tides worked, and they're quickly just trying to think on their feet in a desperate struggle to save face. Perhaps it was a bit annoying that everyone effectively lied to me. I mean, they probably couldn't see the harm, considering the topic. But now that I did know what the diagram meant, it would be difficult to bring up the subject the next time we met.
Well, I actually looked it up and you were wrong.
That's what got Galileo locked up. That's called being annoying. What I need to do is drop some hints so that they think they've come up with the answer themselves. Because I saw how much they defended their obviously fabricated theories before. Okay. So for the purpose of this video, I need to drop some hints about how we get high tides on both sides of the Earth at the same time, so that you think of the answer before I finally reveal it. So I need what can I have as a hint? I know. I have a little fluffy cute dog, a handbag dog, Atticus. He's really cute, and he's got a mohawk. And the thing is, with my dog and I, we both like giving kisses to each other much more than we like receiving kisses. And when I go to kiss him on the face, it's usually safest to kiss him around the eye area, or else his tongue will get me. Now, if he gets impatient and suddenly demands to kiss me, he does something which he knows I hate. He just doesn't close his eye, so I smooch him on an open eyeball. When this happens, I just have to kiss really gently because I'm not sure if I'm meant to be kissing a dog on the eyeball, or if all that salty eyeball juice is even healthy. But mostly he does close his eye, and then I can just kiss him harder. So imagine if I kissed him really hard on his closed eyelid, like creating a really strong suction so it would make a really loud smooch sound if I released it. But if I didn't release it, and I started to simultaneously pull back, I could suck his eyelid out off his face like a little teepee. But imagine if I not only sucked his eyelid out towards me, but it also pulled his eyeball out towards me as well, leaving the rest of the dog in the same spot, but just sucking the eyelid and the eyeball out towards me. So with that everyday anecdote, I assume you have now worked out why there are high tides on both sides of the Earth at the same time. Like, if I'm the moon, I suck the water closest to me, and that causes a big bulge. And I also pull the solid Earth towards me a bit too, away from the water on the opposite side, leaving a second bulge behind, made of the water on the backside of the Earth. But you all understood that from the dog eyeball story, right? So it was good to finally get that settled. But it opened up a lot more questions too. Like, when the Earth is pulled away from the water on the farther side away from the moon, is there a big bubble caused where the Earth is pulled away from the water on the bottom of the ocean? And once the moon has moved the Earth, does it move it back again? So obviously I had a lot more to learn about tides. It was that diagram. That's what put me on this path. Well, initially I was in a situation where it would have been nice to know what the tide was doing. That's when I found the diagram. So I was painting this painting here, just outside of Bergen in Norway. And I was setting up my easel, and it would have been the nicest to stand right down at the water's edge. But I didn't know if the tide was coming or going. And if the tide was coming in, I'd get all wet. But I thought the tide probably was going out, since the beach looked a bit damp before I got completely to the water. But there also could have been a big boat that had just sped past and made some bigger waves, which had wet the beach. So I actually didn't really know if the tide was coming in or going out. The safest bet, I figured, was to stand up past where all the twigs and stuff looked like they washed up. Then at least I wouldn't get wet. But now if the water was going out, I was maybe going to end up ages away from the water. So did I need to paint the water in the foreground first, or could I wait for a bit? As it turned out, the difference between high tide and low tide here is usually about 1/2 meter, which isn't very much, and that's in vertical height. So not the distance it covers on the beach if you're looking down on it. Because if the beach is like a gentle slope and the water's rising 1/2 meter, that could cover quite a few meters of distance up the beach. Also, if the sun and the moon align, they can pull super hard as a team, and then this height can increase to over 1 meter in this location. But I was painting in Alaska a few years back, and their tides were not 1/2 meter. I looked it up, and the difference between high tide and low tide there was 8.5 meters. If you're American and you don't know meters, 8.5 meters is almost 850 centimeters, or almost 3 stories. While I was there, someone offered me a boat ride to go and check out some whales. When I walked down to the boat, I walked down from the footpath on a little slightly angled ramp to a floating pontoon. It all seemed pretty normal. I mean, I guess it was normal. I tried to act cool like the sort of person who hangs out at the marina, so I didn't ask too many questions. I didn't want to seem like someone who hadn't been on a boat before, or else I was scared they would try to make me wear one of those ugly, puffy orange vest thingies. Anyway, when we came back, it was unrecognizable. It wasn't the same quaint, cozy marina we started the journey from. It was like we were chugging into a canyon. The footpath was now about 3 stories above me, way up in the air. The ramp that came down from solid land, down to the floating pontoon, was now tilted up like a ladder because the floating part had descended so much lower. But it did also work as a ladder because it had horizontal bits of wood attached. I was actually very impressed by that. So you could climb back up. Apparently, there's a place in Canada where it's double that. 16 meters difference between high tide and low tide. To put that in perspective, like scientists do, 16 meters is the equivalent of a book with 320,000 pages. Now, I had mentioned these tidal height differences during these tide conversations. People were unfazed by the different tide heights in different places. Now, to explain this, everyone again said one word: latitude. Admittedly, some people said how high it is, but everyone again with 100% confidence. Where does all the confidence come from? Anyway, I replied Homer in Alaska and Bergen in Norway are almost exactly the same latitude, yet the tides are 8 meters more in Alaska. Then, all of the people I talked to quickly changed course and said, bathymetry. Well, no one actually said bathymetry, but that is what they meant. They didn't even say underwater topology. They said underwater geometry, which is also quite a big word. They probably didn't know the word bathymetry, or they didn't think that I knew the word, and they were trying to protect my feelings so that I didn't feel stupid. After all, they knew I didn't know how tides work, otherwise I wouldn't be asking. But I did know the word bathymetry. It just doesn't come up that often. I've never really even had a chance to show it off to anyone before, but now you all know. I mean, you know that I know the word. So the thing with words is that they're for communicating. But if less people know the word, then it's actually a way more better word. However, it seemed as though everyone was kind of just pretending they knew. I mean, they all said latitude first and then changed. After latitude, I felt that bathymetry was kind of the next logical net to cast. It kind of covers a lot of bases. But maybe I should let you also figure out why some areas have vastly different tidal heights than others for yourselves again, so you don't call me Galileo. So, okay. If I have a Sunday roast dinner, I'm usually the first one sitting ready to go. Therefore, I'm one of the first people to take the gravy. But I don't want to take too much, because I want to make sure there's enough gravy for everyone. Well, partially true. I mostly don't want to look greedy. Ideally, I should be the last one to take the gravy, and then I could take a lot. But only if there's a lot left, I could potentially also get none. So it's a risk. Anyway, what I'm saying is I really want everything to be covered in gravy. So after I've poured the gravy on, I need to lift up my plate and start tipping it back and forth to try and move the gravy around and get it in contact with lots of roast potatoes and the Yorkshire pudding and the carrots and the meat. But it's not that simple. In some parts, the gravy moves really fast, and I quickly have to tip the plate back in the other direction to stop the gravy going off the edge. Meanwhile, on other parts of the plate, it's like the gravy gets trapped in an arrangement of potatoes and stuff and sort of pulls up there and doesn't really go anywhere. And imagine it's not just a plate, but a whole roast dinner formed like a planet. And that roast dinner planet is as big as the Earth and also spinning around really fast. Well, it spins once a day, I guess. That means those potatoes at the surface will be traveling at 1,670 kilometers per hour. For Americans, 1,670 kilometers per hour is faster than 5 Ferraris. So if you understood that gravy story, you got it. You now understand why tides at different heights in different places. So because of the Earth's rotation, land boundaries, basins, and wave interference, the water, not unlike gravy, is forced to slosh around in rotating circles rather than moving straight back and forth. And those parts of the plate where the gravy gets trapped in an arrangement of potatoes and doesn't go anywhere, those are called amphidromic points. They're these points where the water bangs into itself and gets all confused and doesn't go anywhere, up or down. So there's no tide there at all. And there's heaps of these points. There's about a dozen in major oceans and hundreds if you include the smaller seas. And the closer you are to these points, the less the tide. Anyway, no one mentioned these amphidromic points. In fact, I've never heard that there are points in the ocean with no tide before. Ever. I admit I didn't know. But I'm not sure I particularly like the fact that no one felt comfortable saying they didn't know. No one said, "Oh, sorry, I thought I understood tides when you initially asked, but you probed kind of too deep, and I thought I could get away with it, but I admit it just never really interested me, and to be honest, this conversation doesn't really interest me either." Nobody said that. They just kept on inventing conspiracy theory explanations for every twist that was presented. But I did appreciate the creativity. So to be clear, I'm not bragging. I'm not sure actually if me saying nobody I know knows how tides work is seen as bragging. I'm not even saying I know. I know I don't know. I have to visualize it as commonplace things in my life, like the taste of my dog's eyeball or potatoes and gravy. Although I think I know more than you. Well, I did know more than you up until now. Now we know the same amount. But do I understand? Not at all. I was actually immediately annoyed by how difficult it was. Like, I kind of don't even want to promote this tide info because I know people are just going to comment about additional interesting tide stuff, and it's going to spiral into too much of my brain being taken up with tidal causation and effects. I really just wanted to know the end result, so that if I'm painting on a beach, I'll know where to stand and what I need to prioritize painting first. But if I have the internet, do I really need to know it? Like, I have the info there if I need it. I'm almost certain I'll never need to know why the tides happen, unless there's a quiz. Like, from all this info, how am I going to figure out the times of high or low tide and how much it rises or falls? I guess if I sat out each night under a brilliant, clear, open sky and checked the phases of the moon, and I knew the tidal heights from my location or the distance from the amphidromic points, and the effect that the local coastline and bathymetry had on the tidal activity here, it's not going to happen. I don't even think scientists work it out. I think they've just measured it over time and then stuck it on a chart and then seen that it matches the lunar cycle and then just extrapolated that to match. So I'm going to need to look up the tides anyway. So I've just wasted my own time finding out all about tides, let alone talking about it for so long with you. And your time. What about your time? I've given you all this information that you really can't do anything with. I bet that's annoying. I guess it's true what everybody says, though. I am just like Galileo.